Yeah. Alright. Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic Classes and Non-Classes. This is episode number 32, 37, 47. Just want to take a look. Yeah, 43, excuse me. 32, 43, Doubleshot, 31, 37. Okay, so we have two books written by two very popular Spider-Man writers. First one being Spider-Man, Shadow of the Goblin. This is written by David DeMatteis. This is mostly by DeMatteis retelling classic events from basically from issue 14 Amazing Spider-Man, basically a little more expansion on some stories that were already there. And this is basically all about the Green Goblin. The whole thing is focused in his perspective on, well, what happened over the years. By the way, it's only 4 issues, plus they include a -1 issue in here from 90s. All work done by Michael Santamaria. The first issue is a tad bit of a recap of the first. Basically, Amazing Spider-Man 15 a little bit, plus another flashback. And then we see Proto-Goblin. Yep, he returns his book. Now, he last appeared on Telltale's Spider-Man. Now he's back here. There's, of course, Bill's in here. You could say this issue, this mini-series, is filling tiny little gaps here and there, but doesn't contradict anything established in the main book. Then, of course, basically, we have this guy, Maxwell Sim. He would actually be in issue Amazing 15. He also appeared in Amazing number 1. I think he'd be like 1 or 2 times after that. Yeah, and we have Clifford. And basically, like, you can't find anything, but because of Peace and Jameson, you can't do anything at all. And apparently the story of Amazing Spider-Man family took place just prior to this. And he's here basically with actually it's Harry with Gwen. And this is when something that they never really explored for ever in History of Spider-Man comics. Gwen's mom. Yes. Gwen's mom, who basically has got a condition. You have Norman consoling Gwen, but he wasn't talking to him. Yep. So yeah, Spider-Man take a kid like, I'm done. Yeah. And then we have this guy being a jerk who is hitting on Gwen, who proceeds to, like, he tries to do this thing with her, like, grab her wrist. He then proceeds to shove him on his butt, knocking over a bunch of stuff. Like, he's a fantastic teacher. Because our father, George Sage, saw our self-defense classes. And then, of course, Proto-Goblin returns, looking for Harry Osborn. Yeah, and then the next issue, basically, Spider-Man has to deal with the Sandman. Of course, the Sandman. Yep. Oop. Yeah. Of course, and so you have like Sandman. It's not exactly the first time they met him per se, but yeah, I just never encountered with him. And for some reason, I'm not sure why. In some shots of what he's drawn here, he looks like Thomas Hayden Church, the man who played him in live action from Spider-Man 3 Returned in Spider-Man No Way Home. More Proto-Goblin stuff, and then we have issue 3, which is a clear homage to another famous cover. I think this is like, I think this is from Naked number 1, maybe. I have some thugs up here, and then so one of the guys named Van Adler is like this is actually his Norman, who basically is not worried by this. his son going missing, then it seems like they would go to a flashback of how Norm met his wife, Harry's mom. Yeah, and then eventually is Harry's birth, like fail, and then basically like growing up, and of course they got married, and then of course basically, then you have where George here with his wife, who I think might be because wearing a cap, she might be going through cancer. Now, Mrs. Stacy has never seen part of this. Actually, I think maybe her first appearance I could think of. Oh, and also, Peter's wearing glasses here. So, this is presumably set during high school time. Well, presumably because Peter, by the time he went to college, he stopped wearing glasses because they weren't needed. And then we have a flashback to the night Ben Parker died. But just hallucination. I gotta admit, James Diamandis does an excellent job with this book. And then we have where I think it's like MJ with, yeah, it's it's actually his mom. Yes, his mom. And this shot here, he looks like James Franco, aka the actor playing from the live-action Spider-Man series. I'm not sure why occasionally in this book they would have the characters drawn like the live-action actors. Now, you're probably thinking, does Norman look like Willem Dafoe? Oh, heck yes! At least Gwen and Captain Stacy basically look pretty normal. Yeah. And then the book just ends. And by the way, Protogoblin, he just falls apart. Does not see it again. And then we have negative number 1. Which basically focuses on Arthur Stacy, who is actually George Stacy's brother. And for some reason, I'm not sure why, I didn't realize it when I read this before. For some weird reason with this goatee, he looks like Oliver Queen from DC Comics. Yeah. But this book is awesome. Yeah. I gotta admit, this was a lot of fun. Excellent book, J. Matthias. 10 out of 10. Next up, basically, we have is Star Trek, the Modala Imperative. Now, I did say this is written by a Spider-Man writer, that being Peter David. He writes there's actually 2 miniseries, this one. There's one for the original series, and this one for Next Generation. The one for the series is written by Michael J. Freeman, who is a regular Star Trek writer. He wrote a lot of Star Trek stuff. And I do mean a lot. He wrote a lot of novels. I don't know what he does nowadays, but sadly because Paradise Past, I can't exactly have him sign this, but there's no denying, this book was awesome. Yeah, so Peter David, the second one, obviously. The art for both stories are by Pablo Marcus, who I think is still alive. Yes. So, mostly put, this directive is basically all about this one world, and we have the bridge crew. Mostly we have Scotty, Chekhov, Sulu, and Hura. This is presumably season 3 of the series, mainly because basically, I think it was at that point Chekhov was actually on the bridge crew. Yes. Though he did make his debut at the start of season 2 of the show. Let me see Kirk's living room. It's a standard mission, basically, but gotta admit, I love the art Pablo Marcus does. It's amazing. Yeah, running a dictatorship. Yeah. And of course, basically, it's like violating. Basically, the Prime Directive is like some rioting here. I gotta admit, you gotta read this miniseries basically to understand what the heck is going on here. But the original series stuff was interesting, and of course, the thing continues over Next Generation, which, if you're really curious, there are basically 2 5-issue limited series in here, and basically Peter David's I found a little more interesting. Nothing against Michael J. Friend. The guy's basically used to Star Trek stuff. Yeah, in the case of Peter David stuff, they start off with, get this, okay, we have Michael J. Friend and with some old man falling off a cliff, and we start out with the Peter David one where we see somebody jump a cliff into the water, and it turns out to be Beverly Crusher. Yep, Beverly Crusher. And we see Data here in this funny looking sailor suit. So this is so funny. Absolutely so hilarious. And of course, Riker is wearing a Speedo. Of course he is. Yeah, and then we see Admiral Dr. McCoy in his second ever Next Generation appearance. He made his first appearance in Next Generation in the opening episode of the series, Encounter at Farm, which he does encounter Spock in here, which he does give him a hug, and of course basically does see the bridge crew, which is his based in the style uniforms. This is presumably season 2, because Tashiar is not here. Okay, so it said 4 years ago. I assume this was season 2. No, this actually is, I'm guessing it's year 4 or 5 per se, because Worf is here. And of course, you have Dr. Crusher having a chat with like a fine, healthy woman. Oh, a little fun fact, in one of the novels, if you're really curious of who was responsible for allowing families to basically on Federation starships, it was Dr. McCoy's idea. Because he was the head of Starfleet Medical at that point, so it was actually his idea to do that. Nurse? He's a doctor. Yep. And of course, the flashback of the Breeze mini-series, which is a sequel to. And of course, the Guinan, which is obviously. And then, here comes Spock! Yes. Yeah, and I love the fact they flashback to movies. Is that Spock? Spock, it's you! Yay! Yeah, but despite how he doesn't act very emotional, but he's very pleased to see him. Yeah, and of course, basically, where Picard is a bit unusual, where basically he allowed children to look around but not touch anything. So I'll thank the Admiral. Thank you. May make the appearance, good you. Yep. And of course, I love basically the scene here. Peter Dave writes this where McCoy asks Spock, what does he think of Picard? His record is very impressive, thoughtful, dedicated Starfleet officer, and did my father a significant service. They have a great deal in common. They have great differences. Found pointless. You think Jim gotten on him? You know what I think? Yeah. Picard doesn't seem to have the same entertainment that pushed Jim, or the same love-hate relationship that Jim had with the Enterprise. Jim couldn't have an independent relationship because the Enterprise was all consumed love. Now Picard, he's proud of his command. There's no doubt he has seen all. Like, this scene is wonderful. I love this scene of this interaction between two World Series characters who, believe it or not, in the Next Generation era, these two never share a screen together. Like, outside of the original series and movies, this is probably one time you can see these two sharing screen time together. And you gotta thank Peter Dave for this. Yep. And you have basically Spock on the Enterprise, which something that never happened in this show because it only appeared on Romulus. But You're probably thinking, wait, is this before unification? Presumably, yes. Yeah. And then we have Dr. Solar. If you're not familiar with this character here, this is a character who appeared on the New Frontier series, who actually became apparent on that particular not in the novels. Peter David created. He didn't technically create this character per se. She was actually first mentioned on an episode of Exploration. You could say this is an early appearance before she became part of the Frontier crew. But yeah, apparently a grandfather served for the Intrepid. So it is just so awesome. You can definitely tell, and we have the Ferengi show up here. Yes, the Ferengi trying to do the whole weird stuff here, take control of stuff, and celebrate the anniversary of the Liberation Dictatorship. But this is what I meant. This book is awesome. Excuse me. Reading this, you can definitely tell that Peter David was definitely a fan of Star Trek. Oh yes, definitely. I give this book a 10 out of 10. Yep, so that's pretty much it, particular review. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications. Next up is One Piece, okay? Bye.